Taiki is a third-year high school student and a member of the badminton team. Every morning, Taiki trains with Chinatsu, a first-year basketball player he deeply admires. By a twist of fate, Chinatsu ends up living in Taiki's house, and Taiki is deeply in love with her. We see Taiki running through the streets at dawn, thinking about the one person he wants to meet every morning. He finally arrives at the gym, only to be greeted by a basketball hitting him square in the face. The girl who threw it, Chinatsu, rushes over to check if he's okay, apologizing as she hands him a chocolate bar. Taiki, slightly dazed, happily accepts. AMA High School, where they study, is a private school known for its sports teams. Taiki is a member of the badminton team, and morning training is optional. He always tries to be the first to the gym, but Chinatsu, a member of the girls' basketball team, always beats him there. After a few days of training together, Taiki realizes that he likes Chinatsu. During practice in the afternoon, he daydreams about marrying her, imagining her making breakfast for him. His friend Kyo, noticing his faraway look, bursts his bubble with a teasing remark, asking why he's talking like that. Taiki admits that he'd love to wake up to Chinatsu's face every morning. Kyo, ever practical, reminds him that he can't even date her. He goes on to point out that Chinatsu is the rising star of her team, with both talent and a personality that's sure to make her famous. Kyo adds that Taiki, on the other hand, is just a regular member of the badminton team, not even well known at school, and because of his skill level, he has to practice with middle schoolers. You're on different levels, man. Those morning chats are the only real contact you have with her, Kyo tells him. Taiki understands but feels he has to at least try. Kyo advises him to start small, make sure she knows his name, and then ask for her contact information. A girl named Hina interrupts their conversation, startling Kyo. Annoyed, he scolds her for sneaking up on them and jokes that she looks like she's still in elementary school. Hina, not missing a beat, retorts that she's the same age as them, and reminds him she's grown 7 centimeters this summer. Kyo dismisses this, commenting that she's still barely over 150 centimeters tall. After their playful banter, Taiki subtly asks Hina what girls like. Hina, picking up on his intentions, eagerly gives him advice. He should look confident and relaxed, and most importantly, he should work on his appearance. Taiki's friends are a bit freaked out by her intense enthusiasm. As Taiki walks away, he realizes that asking Hina for advice was a mistake, as her tastes are too specific. He spots Chinatsu sitting by the gym door, engrossed in a playbook. Taiki knows this is his chance to take the next step, but he hesitates, unsure how to start the conversation. Suddenly, Chinatsu sneezes softly, and without thinking, Taiki offers her his scarf, along with his thermos of hot tea, gloves, and even a pocket heater. He shows her how shaking it makes it warm. Realizing he might have overdone it, Taiki begins to feel embarrassed. Chinatsu looks at him curiously and jokes about what else he might have in his bag. She then laughs, thanking him for his kindness. Pleased to have made her laugh, Taiki suddenly sneezes as well. Chinatsu wraps him in her scarf and playfully tells him to dress warmer. Taiki can't help but feel like they're acting like a married couple, with Chinatsu fussing over him. A guard arrives to unlock the gym. Chinatsu stands up and tells Taiki not to catch a cold, calling him by name. Taiki, surprised, asks how she knows his name. She simply replies that his mom has a cool sense of humor. Confused, Taiki remembers that his mom had labeled his scarf with his name. Taiki is thrilled that she said his name, but also slightly embarrassed that his mom still treats him like a kid. During practice, as he grabs a damp towel, he's still buzzing with excitement from hearing her say his name. He's made it past step 2. Now he just needs to ask for her contact information. Later, as he leaves the locker room, he spots Chinatsu outside, talking seriously with her coach. Before he can process what's happening, Hina sneaks up on him again. Nervously, he brushes it off as nothing, but Hina, always sharp, remarks that Taiki is aiming too high. Taiki insists it's not a big deal, but Hina teases him, claiming she saw Chinatsu with another guy the other day. Panicked, Taiki asks for details, which only confirms his interest in Chinatsu. Hina laughs, admitting she was just teasing. Taiki, however, can't help but notice how serious Chinatsu looks in her conversation with her coach. That evening, after everyone has left, Taiki realizes he forgot his towel in the gym and returns to retrieve it. To his surprise, he finds Chinatsu still practicing. She recognizes him and once again calls him by name. Taiki asks if she's still training, and Chinatsu explains that she wasn't happy with her performance earlier. Concerned, Taiki advises her not to overdo it, but she admits she just wants to play a little longer. He realizes how much she loves basketball. Noticing Taiki staring at her, Chinatsu playfully tosses the basketball to him, challenging him to a one-on-one. Taiki accepts, but Chinatsu easily crushes him. He falls to the floor, gasping for breath, while Chinatsu, barely winded, offers him a break as if nothing had happened. She compliments compliments him on doing well, considering how tired he must be from badminton. Taiki explains that his mom used to play basketball and taught him a bit. Chinatsu, smiling, shares that she used to play a lot with her mom before joining the team. Taiki feels they have something in common and starts to believe it's fate. Chinatsu asks if he's ever considered playing basketball, but he shyly admits that team sports aren't for him because he's extremely competitive. He also enjoys the solitude of being alone on the badminton court. Whether he wins or loses, he's the only one responsible, which he likes. Chinatsu teases him, asking if he's a masochist, and says she feels the same way. That's why she trains so hard, so she doesn't disappoint her team. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Taiki asks if she trained the day after leaving her middle school team. About a year and a half ago, on a day off, Taiki had stopped by the gym to grab something and saw her training while crying. Later, he learned they had narrowly lost the nationals, and he understood how devastated she must have been. That moment inspired him to train harder, and he thinks it might have been the moment he started liking her. He notices Chinatsu is staring at him intently. Their conversation is interrupted by a guard who tells them it's time to leave. As they get up to go, a basketball rolls toward them, and as they both reach to catch it, their hands touch. Taiki notices her hand feels warmer than before. The next morning, as Taiki is getting ready for school, his mom hands him his lunch and shows him a magazine featuring Chinatsu. Taiki gets excited seeing her, and his mom asks if he knows her. Embarrassed, Taiki denies it. His mom explains that she used to be on the same basketball team as Chinatsu's mother. Taiki is shocked by the coincidence. His mom adds that Chinatsu's family is moving abroad. This news hits Taiki like a bucket of cold water. He suddenly realizes that this must have been the reason for the serious conversation Chinatsu had with her coach. Without hearing another word, he rushes to the gym. All he can think about is Chinatsu's dedication to her team. He knows how much she wants to succeed, and he can't bear the thought of her being forced to abandon her dreams. When he bursts into the gym, Chinatsu is there. Surprised by his flustered state, she asks what's wrong. Taiki, catching his breath, tells her to reach the nationals. He explains that since meeting her, he's learned to work hard every day, to keep pushing after failures, and to never give up on his goals. He begs her not to give up, even if she can't control her family's decision to move abroad. Chinatsu interrupts him, smiling, and tells him she's not going abroad. Taiki, stunned, goes quiet, realizing how embarrassed he is by his outburst. She explains that while her family is moving abroad, she will be staying behind with a family friend. Taiki, still flustered, says he's glad, and awkwardly tries to leave, but Chinatsu stops him. She admits she was worried about being lonely without her parents, but remembered their conversation about her middle school team. She realized that her dream of going to nationals and her determination to achieve it were stronger than her fears. She thanks Taiki sincerely, saying that his words gave her the confidence to stay and pursue her goal. Embarrassed, Taiki brushes it off, saying he didn't do much. Chinatsu playfully throws a basketball at him, asking for a rematch in their one-on-one game someday. Taiki agrees, but suggests they also play badminton. Chinatsu happily agrees. The next day, Taiki reflects on their conversation, wondering if he embarrassed himself. He's glad it's Sunday so he can avoid seeing her for a day and avoid risking another awkward moment. As he gets out of bed and heads to the kitchen, he thinks that for the first time he doesn't want to see Chinatsu. But to his surprise, Chinatsu is already there, greeting him casually. Stunned, he asks why she's at his house. His mom enters the kitchen, accompanied by Chinatsu's mother, and explains that this is what she wanted to tell him before. Chinatsu will be living with them starting in the spring. Chinatsu thanks them for letting her stay. Taiki shouts in shock. The long-awaited day arrives, and Chinatsu moves into her new home. Taiki's family gathers to welcome her, and everyone agrees that she's polite, pretty, and brings a fresh sense of joy to the house. However, Taiki finds himself struggling to process the situation. Seeing Chinatsu in casual clothes, walking through the hallways and interacting with his family feels overwhelming. He can't help but wonder if he'll have to live with her until graduation, and despite taking the first steps toward establishing a relationship, he suddenly feels out of his depth. The door to his room opens, and it's Chinatsu, freshly out of the bath. She informs him that the bathroom is now free, and as Taiki looks at her, he realizes she appears even more beautiful post-bath. Nervously, he tries to divert his attention by pretending to read a magazine. Noticing it's the latest issue of Jump, Chinatsu mentions that she hasn't had a chance to read it yet due to the move. He offers her the magazine, and he notices her gaze fixed on him. Chinatsu admits feeling relieved. She was scared of living with strangers, but knowing that her training partner lives there and that they share similar tastes makes her feel more at ease. The next day at practice, Taiki is buzzing with energy. Kyo notices his friend's excitement about spending time with Chinatsu, but warns him to keep it a secret. Chinatsu has many admirers, and if they find out about Taiki's advantage, it might lead to trouble for him. Despite the warning, Kyo tells Taiki he's lucky because this is a fast track to building a relationship. However, Taiki feels unworthy to ask her out directly and resolves to improve his skills to make it to the national competitions. Kyo realizes that Taiki is pushing himself hard, knowing that only a few make it to nationals and that his skills might not be enough. Still, Taiki insists that it's worth the effort. After another round of practice, Taiki asks Kyo for one more match, but Kyo wants to take a break. While Kyo goes to get water, another friend comes over to play. Hina approaches Kyo and mentions how enthusiastic Taiki seems lately. Kyo explains that Taiki has set a new goal, making it to nationals. Hina laughs, acknowledging Taiki's limited skills, but Kyo counters that the most determined people are the ones who achieve their goals. At home, Taiki embarks on a new, grueling exercise routine. Exhausted, he collapses on the floor and watches a video of himself training on his phone. He knows his skills need significant improvement if he wants to make it to nationals. Chainatsu finds him and asks what he's watching. Embarrassed, he admits it's a training video. When she asks to see it, he hesitates, feeling ashamed. Chainatsu surprises him by admitting she often watches him during practice. Finally, he relents and shows her the video. She watches in awe and praises his speed and agility, but Taiki downplays it, insisting he lacks the natural movement needed for the game. He realizes he's inadvertently confessed his plans for the future and tries to backtrack, not wanting her to know until he has shown some results. Chainatsu, however, has heard him and isn't going to let it slide. She asks if he's not planning to go to nationals with her after what she said when she learned about her parents' move. Taiki gives in and admits he is aiming for nationals. Chainatsu tells him to wait a moment, leaves the room, and returns seconds later with a woven bracelet. She explains that she made it when she decided to stay in Japan to turn her determination into something tangible, and she offers it to him. Without hesitation, Taiki takes the bracelet and ties it around his ankle, believing this gift will be something he treasures forever. Noticing he's tied it too tightly, Chinatsu helps him adjust it, asking him to make it to nationals too. After securing it, she reveals that she wears an identical bracelet on her ankle. She bids him goodbye and leaves. As Taiki looks at the bracelet, he resolves to train hard enough that it wears out and falls off. He realizes that if this continues, he will definitely fall in love with her. To combat distracting thoughts, he decides to do 30 sit-ups each time he gets sidetracked. The next day, Taiki prepares to leave early. Chinatsu notices and asks if he's heading out so soon. He explains that he has to assist with organizing events during spring break. She wishes him luck as he leaves. At school, Taiki is caught doing his sit-ups as a form of punishment. Hina sees him and, confused, asks if something happened between him and Chinatsu. Taiki tries to evade the question, but Hina presses for a confession, sensing his discomfort. Knowing Hina will get excited about the plot and tell everyone if she finds out what's going on, Taiki heads to the lockers, with Hina trailing closely behind. There, they unexpectedly run into Chinatsu, who hands Taiki his wallet. Mentioning he left it at home, Taiki exclaims in surprise, thanking her as he thought he'd lost it. Realizing Hina is present and could misunderstand the situation, his sudden and nervous reaction seems a bit harsh to Chinatsu. Meanwhile, Hina is touched by the apparent progress of her friend. At lunch, Taiki shares the incident with Kyo. Kyo understands it was a mistake and suggests that Taiki should have asked Chinatsu to keep their living arrangement private. He warns that if Taiki keeps trying to hide it, she might think he doesn't like living with her. A teacher interrupts their lunch, asking for help to carry some chairs to a room. Noticing they don't have enough people, he calls on Chinatsu and Hina, who are passing by, to assist. Everyone grabs chairs, and Taiki feels the urge to fix things. The last thing he wants is for Chinatsu to think he wants nothing to do with her. He offers to carry a couple of her chairs, but she curtly refuses. Taiki realizes the situation is worse than he thought. She seems to want to pretend they don't know each other at all. Meanwhile, Hina is thoroughly enjoying the drama. On the way to the room, she asks Chinatsu directly if she has a boyfriend. Chinatsu replies that she doesn't. Taiki can't believe how shameless Hina is being, but Hina presses on, asking if Chinatsu isn't interested in having a boyfriend. Chinatsu explains that for now, she's just focused on basketball. Hina feels like her little soap opera just hit a dead end. They arrive at the room to deliver the chairs and meet a man who asks if they're part of the club. Taiki explains that they were just helping out during their lunch break. The man, impressed by their willingness to help, introduces himself as Inomata and mentions that Taiki's coach has spoken highly of him, showing surprise at Taiki's progress. Inomata assures Taiki that if he keeps it up, he'll soon be playing at the high school level and that they're counting on him for the team in the nationals qualifiers. Ecstatic, Taiki glances at Chinatsu to see her reaction to the good news, but she turns away and walks off indifferently. Hina asks Kyo what's going on between Taiki and Chinatsu, sensing that Chinatsu seems to hate him. Kyo, however, thinks they make a great couple. Back at practice, Taiki, upset, takes out his frustration on his teammates. Suddenly, there's a crash in the gym, and Taiki sees Chinatsu on the ground. They help her up and it seems she's fine. Kyo notices Taiki's worried expression and reminds him that he can't approach her to check if she's okay since they're pretending not to know each other. In the locker room, Chinatsu is filling her water bottle. Taiki gathers his courage and approaches her, asking if she's okay. She seems surprised to see him and questions why they aren't pretending not to know each other. He apologizes, explaining he's just embarrassed about living together, especially since she's so popular. He worries that if people find out, it could become a scandal. Much more relaxed, Chinatsu asks if that's all that's bothering him. She reveals that she thought he liked Hina because he'd been acting strangely whenever Hina was around, asking about boyfriends as if he wanted advice. Understanding his reasons, Chinatsu agrees to keep her distance, even considering living in the shed or finding a cheap room nearby. Taiki chuckles, calling her silly and laughing at the idea. At that moment, Hina walks into the locker room and sees them sharing this moment. After practice, the coach announces that trials for the team playing in the qualifiers will start soon. Kyo tells Taiki that if he wants to make it to nationals, his first step will be to beat his teammate Haru, a second year and the third-ranked player on the team. Taiki knows it's something within his reach. As they look around, they notice far more spectators than usual. Kyo comments that they all have hidden motives. Taiki realizes they came to see Chinatsu, while others are there to watch Hina, who's doing rhythmic gymnastics. Hina's coach praises her, and her teammates mention that Hina once placed 4th in nationals, and that her father was on Japan's national team. Hina notices her friends watching and charges them 2,000 yen for the show. Taiki refuses to pay. Hina jokes about how passionately he was watching her, trying to tease him into admitting it. Taiki attempts to argue back, but when he notices Chinatsu watching him, he decides to show off his training instead. On the way out, Taiki reflects on needing to be more mindful of his behavior so he doesn't confuse Chinatsu. Just then, Hina surprises him by asking what he's doing there since he lives in the opposite direction. She mentions she's going to see a chiropractor near his house. Taiki realizes that if Hina sees Chinatsu entering his house, it could create a scandal. Luckily, Chinatsu is still at school, but he needs to distract Hina. Taiki tries to hurry her along, but she gets easily distracted. At one point, she stops to look longingly at some taiyakis. In an effort to speed things up, he offers to buy her one, but she refuses, though it's clear she wants it. Hina explains that she can't consume any more calories as she meticulously plans her diet. She knows exactly how many calories taiyakis contain and maintains strict control to avoid compromising her gymnastics abilities. Taiki discovers a side of his friend he didn't know. He acknowledges her talent and admits that thinking about the differences between someone as strong as her and someone as ordinary as him makes him anxious. Still, he expresses admiration for her hard work. She tells him he's being too sentimental, but admits she's impressed with him too. She's noticed his interest in Chinatsu and acknowledges that it's a tough goal. Regardless, as his best friend, she's willing to help him in any way she can. Now, it's Taiki's turn to tell her she's being too sentimental. In the distance, he spots Chinatsu walking very close to his teammate Haru. Taiki sees Chinatsu walking very amicably with Haru, which deeply depresses him. However, Hima tries to cheer him up, saying that just because they are walking together doesn't mean there is something between them. For example, Hima points out that they are also walking together, and it doesn't mean they have romantic intentions. Taiki agrees and they continue their walk awkwardly, but the next day, he again finds Chinatsu talking to Haru in the gym. Kyo mentions that both of them are superstars in their sports, and Hima adds that they are in the same year, in the same class, and are class representatives. Taiki falls into the depths of sadness. Hima tries to cheer him up again, reminding him that Chinatsu said she wasn't thinking about a relationship at the moment and just wanted to focus on basketball. Taiki agrees, but knows that you can't help who you fall in love with. The coaches oversee the training, trying to spot the best talents, which they know are the seniors and Haru, who has what it takes to compete at the national level. Still, the coach sees potential in Taiki as well. During practice, the basketball falls near Taiki and Chinatsu goes to retrieve it. The sight of it causes Taiki some pain, so he simply gives her the ball and walks away. But then, Chinatsu asks him what time he'll be home that day because he forgot his key and his parents won't be home that night. He replies that he'll finish at 7, the same time as her. They're about to agree to go home together when Haru interrupts them, calling Chinatsu Chi and asking if she has another stopwatch because his broke. Taiki is consumed with jealousy as he runs home, not only because Haru calls her by her name, but by a cute nickname, Chi. He wonders what he has to do to reach that level of familiarity. At that moment, Chinatsu arrives, startling him and leaving him in an awkward position on the floor. Taiki realizes that he is the product of pathetic and strange. Chinatsu sits next to him and tells him that he came home quickly, because when she left, the badminton team was just starting to shower, so he thought practice had spread. Taiki tries to avoid the conversation by going to his room, but Chinatsu stops him and asks if he ran home because he didn't want to leave her waiting outside. Taiki is surprised at how perceptive she is, since that is exactly what happened. He realizes that no matter what people call her, she pays a lot of attention to him, and that makes him very happy. Chinatsu tells him that if that was what he did, it was a sweet gesture. Taiki stands up and tells her that she is wrong, that he only ran home to train, then heads off to continue running. As he runs, Taiki thinks that it doesn't matter what the others do, he just needs to focus on the matches to get to nationals. But he admits that if someone calls her Chi in front of him again, he'll go crazy. The next day, Taiki wins another match and is on a hot streak, but he's only played against freshmen, not starters. Meanwhile, Haryu has won all of his matches. Kyo asks what's going on with Haryu and Chinatsu, and Taiki says he doesn't care anymore. He won't let it affect him. However, his friend realizes that it still affects him, because when they meet Haryu and Chinatsu at the water fountains, Taiki turns away, trying to convince himself that it doesn't bother him. Chinatsu is told that the badminton team has started their matches, and she wishes Haryu good luck, which is a rude blow to Taiki, who listens. Chinatsu leaves, and Haryu's friend takes the opportunity to ask him what's going on between him and Chinatsu. Haryu replies that there's nothing going on, as they're both focused on sports, but he likes seeing a girl work so hard. Taiki's heart stops for a moment, thinking that Haryu might confess his feelings or intentions toward Chinatsu. Finally, the match between Haryu and Taiki arrives. Haryu sets the pace of the match, and Taiki can't find an opening to attack. Kyo watches with Hima, knowing that this is more than just a match. Taiki is facing someone who seems much closer to reaching his goals than he is. The first half ends, and Haryu beats Taiki 11-4. Kyo approaches his friend as he cools off. An enthusiastic Taiki asks if he thought he was close to scoring several times. He realizes his mistakes and is determined to fix them. Kyo notices how active his friend is, despite all the emotional and morale hits he's taken recently. Taiki admits it's because Chinatsu motivates him, but even so, he doesn't do it just for her. He truly loves his sport. He's called back to resume the match. Taiki notices his shoelace is untied, and when he bends down to tie it, he sees the bracelet Chinatsu made for him. This helps him remember his promise. The game starts again, and this time it's much more even. Everyone can see it, including Chinatsu. In the end, Taiki loses by 6 points. Kyo acknowledges that he did very well, and despite losing, his good performance will likely earn him a spot on the team. Even so, Taiki is upset about the loss. Haryu controlled the game the whole time, and it frustrates Taiki to lose to him, even though he knows they're at different levels. At the entrance to the gym, Haryu and his friend overhear their conversation. Annoyed, Haryu says he's the one most frustrated, even though he won. His friend asks why, and Haryu is about to explain something that happened at the end, but changes his mind and walks away. Taiki walks home, thinking about all the ways Haryu is better than him, and how he needs to work on the mistakes he made during the match. Just then, Chinatsu runs in. She tells him that the sun is almost setting and asks him to run after her. He asks where she is taking him, and she just says it's a nice place. They arrive at a park, and she shows him that she borrowed a pair of rackets from the gym. She draws a line in the dirt with a stick, and reminds him that one day he asked her to play badminton, and he felt like he wanted to keep playing. She also suspects that he, like her, feels more motivated after a match. They start playing, and Chinatsu struggles to serve. Taiki can't help but laugh and advises her to just let go of the shuttlecock and spin the racket. She follows his advice, and her serve improves a lot. Chinatsu wants her to practice her spikes and mentions that she did a lot of them during her match today. She replies that she watched his match, but an embarrassed Taiki asks her to forget it because he's embarrassed about losing. Chinatsu tells him that there's nothing to be ashamed of because he played a great match. He mentions that while Haryu only scored 10 points in the second half, Taiki managed to score 11. Taiki hadn't realized that, but he still says that a loss is a loss. Haryu destroyed him in the first half and he couldn't recover. Chinatsu laughs as he realizes how much Taiki hates losing. She points out that he followed the coach's instructions perfectly during practice and in the match, never giving up, which is why he won the second half. She then tells him not to worry and assures him that he'll be fine. Taiki finds it hard to believe in his own talent, but it's easier when the person he likes tells him so. He smiles and promises that he'll win next time. Chinatsu receives a message from Taiki's mother, asking when they will be coming home. Taiki notices that there is a keychain in her bag that says Chi and panics. thinking that Haru gave it to her. But she explains that all of her classmates call her that. This reassures Taiki greatly. She asks if he is ready to go home, but he says that he would prefer if she went ahead, as she might not mind it, but he is bothered by being seen walking home with a girl. He decides to stay and practice some more. Chinatsu heads home alone, thinking about her words, "Maybe it won't bother you," and wondering if that is how he sees her. The next day, Taiki finds out that he has been assigned to train with Haru. Kyo jokes that he will have to go to nationals with his romantic rival. Taiki explains that although he likes Chinatsu, that doesn't make them rivals. But Haru interrupts him and calls him to go train. Haru says that they will use the training plan that he designed. Taiki doesn't mind and is glad that Haru didn't hear the end of his conversation with Kyo. But then, Haru asks him if he likes Chinatsu. Taiki realizes that it's a bad start for their training partnership. They begin training and his teammates watch in awe. Haru's training is very hard and extreme, and they all admit that they couldn't do it. Taiki tries to keep up, but stops to catch his breath. Haru agrees to let him rest, but tells him that Chinatsu never stops for a break, and whoever dates her must be just as disciplined and tough. Taiki gets up and asks what's next in training. After a week, Taiki can't even get up from his desk. He tells his friends that Haru worked him to exhaustion, and that sitting at his desk is the only place he can get some rest. Kyo is surprised that Haru trains him so hard, as he never thought Haru was the type to train as a team. Hima suggests that maybe it's Haru's way of telling Taiki not to get close to his girl, trying to prove that he's better and making fun of him. Taiki tells them he really does feel inferior to Haru, since even though they're doing the same training, Haru never stops and can keep up the pace. During training, they're playing a team match. Taiki returns a shuttlecock with a cross shot, and Haru strictly asks him why he did that, explaining that the opponents were ready for it, and it would have been much better to hit a straight shot, even if it was more difficult for him. He finishes by saying that if Taiki keeps choosing the easy way out, he'll never improve. Taiki understands and immediately starts practicing his straight shots several times. By the time the training ends, he can barely walk. After school, he runs into a group of second-year students, including Haru. Haru congratulates him on his effort that day, and Chinatsu is also in the group. Haru thinks for a moment, grabs Taiki, and tells the group that they were partners that day. He starts listing all of Taiki's mistakes, which were many, but adds at the end that he thinks Taiki will become good because he never gives up, even when subjected to some pretty intense stuff. Taiki feels a bit embarrassed, but also praised at the same time. He looks over at Chinatsu, who quietly tells him, "You're doing great," which makes him feel a lot better. Haru interrupts the conversation when he gets a message from his girlfriend, which surprises Taiki. Haru tells him that they've been together for a week, and that it was tough because she's in show business. He almost gave up, but then she asked him for a date. He also thanks Chinatsu for going with him to buy makeup as a gift, since he would have felt awkward doing it alone. Taiki realizes that Haru had been toying with his feelings all week, and Haru comments that it seems like it's going to take Taiki a little longer to get a girlfriend. If you've reached this point in the video, don't forget to leave the word exquisito in the comments. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.